organisations such as awarding bodies, or sometimes known as awarding organisations. An EQA is nearly always employed as a consultant for our associate, probably would be a better term for it, member of the awarding body, who are hired really to go and complete external quality assurance activities on behalf of the awarding body with training providers. Typical EQA activities include the visiting of potential centres for approval of not only their organisation, but also the approval of the qualifications they wish to deliver as well. Other examples of EQA activities includes the sampling of already established training providers. And I say sampling, that sampling can take the form of direct observation of assessment practice, EQA practice, learner portfolios, learner work is being produced on behalf of the learner and with the learner for the training provider to enable them to gain an accredited or non-accredited, in some terms, qualification. Beyond the sampling and the approval visits, other activities include the completion of standardisation activities. And that standardisation is twofold, really. Standardisation within the organisation themselves, the awarding organisation, and helping centres with their standardisation, i.e. how to give advice and guidance around external quality assurance activities, what they should be completing themselves as a training provider in terms of how to ensure that the standard of assessment and EQA practice is at a high or sufficient level to meet the requirements of their approval contract, which they sign on their initial approval with the awarding body. The flip side, as I briefly mentioned, is where the EQA will carry out their own standardisation with the awarding body in terms of updates, regular meetings, and the meetings are based around sector competence and sector experience and what the EQA actually does with the awarding body. And also, other than at sector competence, the EQA needs to keep up their skills in terms of the way they do business, i.e. the way they conduct approval visits, the processes they use, the policies, procedures that they follow in relation to the awarding body, and perhaps other regulators such as Ofqual or the SIA, for example, is another example of a regulator. And it's just quite important that that's kept current, as I'm sure you're probably aware. Now, most of what I said there, you could link directly across to internal quality assurance, because it is the same thing, albeit from the inside of the training provider. EQAs do observations, they do sampling, they do observe and review the standard of work that assessors and learners do produce. So that's sort of the role of the external quality assurer and what they do. In terms of the external quality assurance cycle, there's a cycle much like the EQA cycle, the assessment cycle, where the EQA carries out the identification of the product or service, i.e. what needs to be quality assured and why, the planning behind it, i.e. devising a sample plan to arrange what will be part of the EQA activity, from whom and when. So planning is quite important, as I'm sure you're aware. And again, this varies the methods of doing planning in terms of documentation and the recording of the planning process from awarding body to awarding body. Okay, moving on to the next step in the cycle, which is all about the activity, carrying out the EQA activities such as the sampling of EQA assessor learners' work I spoke about, talking to, interviewing EQAs, assessors, learners, staff, even witnesses that have potentially been used within the EQA or assessment process. Also Other typical activities include, observation of trainers and assessors, their performance,